So welcome to the Compassion Consortium. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, and I'll be getting us started tonight for this special Animal Reiki event. We're so excited about this. The Compassion Consortium is a non-sectarian and interfaith religious center. We offer spiritual guidance, support, and fellowship for vegans, vegetarians, animal rights activists, animal lovers, and all humans who care about and advocate for animals and the planet, and increasingly plants too. The Compassion Consortium is interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies. And so what that means is by interfaith, we mean that we acknowledge the value in all religions, spiritual paths, philosophies, wisdom traditions. By interspiritual, we mean that we recognize that underneath all of those wonderful traditions, there are common values of peace, compassionate service, and love for all creation. And by interspecies, we mean that we are deeply interested in how these values relate to everyone and everything that's on this planet. We welcome people of all faiths, people who currently don't identify as a specific faith. And if you already have a spiritual home, please know that we encourage multiple belonging. Let us be your spiritual second home, or I like to say your spiritual RV. Come along with adventures and journeys with us. We offer a Sunday service the fourth Sunday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern. They're always a little different, but they include sacred music, interspecies spiritual practices, a guest interview, a look at compassion in action, prayers and blessings, and an interview with someone we think is really interesting. And October 24th is our next service. And the person we think is really interesting this month is Russell 11, who is a Unitarian universalist. Let me start that over. It's a lot of U's and a lot of A's. Unitarian Universalist Animal Ministry Chaplain. So please join us on October 24th. We also offer additional events and classes and interest groups like the one that we have tonight. And I would suggest you save the date for December 7th at 8 p.m. On that night, we're going to have our next Compassion Consortium Compassionate Book Talk, which is with the book Vegan Voices, Essays by Inspiring Changemakers. And we'll have the editor, Joanne Kong, here, as well as contributing authors Jean Bauer and our own Victoria Moran. And finally, if you are headed to the Parliament of the World's Religions next week, which is online this year, you can catch us. We'll be doing a presentation on October 18th, and I'll get that link in the chat in just a moment. So now I invite us all to take another deep breath. All of our housekeeping cleaned away, opening our hearts and our ears and our minds. And I'm going to hand the floor over to William. Reverend William Melton is an ordained interfaith minister and co-founder here at Compassion Consortium. In addition, he's a level 3 animal Reiki master, a Shelter Animal Reiki Association certified practitioner, a fear-free shelter certified practitioner, and he offers animal chaplaincy, animal Reiki, and Tellington Touch holistic healing services as part of his ministry. So he's the perfect person to do tonight's interview. So Reverend William, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so tonight we are very proud to present Exploring the Healing Power of Animal Reiki with our guest, Kathleen Prasad, who is the co-creator of the Let Animals Lead method of Animal Reiki, which teaches animal-guided healing through meditation. Kathleen also co-founded the Shelter Animal Reiki Association, SARA, in 2008. And this organization is dedicated to improving the lives of shelter and other rescue animals and their caregivers through its animal Reiki meditation techniques. SARA has a worldwide network of members who are using its methods for the comfort of animals in shelters, sanctuaries, and rescue centers. And I am a very proud member of this organization. So, Kathleen, thank you for joining us. Let's get started with the discussion. So maybe let's just start out. just in case there's somebody with us tonight who's not very familiar with the concept of Reiki, can you just kind of briefly explain what it is and its history?
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with all of you tonight, and in such an amazing organization. To be invited to speak is a total honor. So thank you so much for having me. So Reiki is actually, originally it was created for humans, and it's seen as some people practice it as a spiritual practice, which would be like the more sort of traditional Japanese way of working with Reiki. Other people practice it as a hands-on healing method for people. But the word Reiki means spiritual energy. And so that's the energy that is the essence of our being, and that everything on earth is made of this energy. And so through our Reiki practice, we're getting in touch with that essence of our true self and who we are. And the beautiful thing about Reiki practice, whatever way you practice, if you practice hands-on with humans, or if you see it as a meditation, spiritual practice with animals, many different ways that people practice, but the sort of the something that you cultivate through your practice is compassion for others, and sort of sharing peace and loving kindness in the world. And so it's, for me, it has evolved into an animal Reiki practice, which I can talk about a little bit tonight. But traditionally, it was really focused on humans. And there's some very important reasons why we should change the approach and shift the way we do it with animals, that I'm sure everybody on this call will understand, to honor animals, to give them agency and choice and independence, and to honor their comfort and what they want, to give them the ability to be leaders in their own healing process, and how that respects their agency as sacred beings. And so that's really where my Reiki practice has evolved over the past 23 years that I've been practicing.
So that's very interesting to me. You mentioned that Reiki started with humans and now is shared with animals, but can you just explain some of the core differences in sharing Reiki with humans versus sharing Reiki with animals?
Yeah, absolutely. So sharing Reiki with humans very much is touch oriented. So when I first learned Reiki, it was hands-on Reiki on, hands-off Reiki off. That was really how I learned Reiki. And so typical Reiki session for yourself, you're doing self-healing, would look like this. You're doing hand positions on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then a typical session for a person would be that they would lie down on a massage table, and you would do hand positions on their body, starting at their head and kind of moving down the body. Or they could be sitting in a chair, and you would do light hand positions starting at the head and moving down the body. So that is really the primary teachings in a human Reiki course. And then, I learned when I took my human Reiki courses, oh yeah, and you can do Reiki on animals and plants and everything else. You can Reiki your food before you eat it. They'd say, just, go wild, share this love and peace and compassion with everything in your life. So originally I just said, okay, yeah, I'm going to share Reiki with animals just the way that I learned for myself. And I was volunteering walking dogs at my local shelter. So I went into my supervisor and I said, hey, I just learned this thing called Reiki, and could I practice with the dogs? And she's like, well, what is it? And I'm like, well, it's like very calming. It's like this therapy that really brings peace and calm. And you know how stressed out shelter dogs are. So she's like, okay, well, it sounds great. Yeah, go for it. We don't really know what it is, but it sounds perfect. So I immediately started practicing with shelter dogs, and those dogs are really the ones where my path started to diverge from human practice, because with my own dog, I could put my hands on him when he was laying down, and I could start at the head and move down the body just like I did with a person, and he would tolerate that. He'd let me do it because he trusted me, and he was well loved and tame and, loved touch. And so it was fine. But when I tried to do this on the shelter dogs that were very, well, many of them had been abused by humans. And so hands were not seen as something positive. Hands can hurt you, is what they felt in their hearts when they would see your hands. Some of them had never had a positive experience or ever felt kindness from a human. And so for me to go over and start to do a therapy on them was very scary for them. And so I was having some dogs kind of tolerate my human protocol, and other dogs get scared and run away from me. And so that was where I was like, well, wait a minute. For me, Reiki helped to heal me of my anxiety disorder, which I had had since I was like 4 years old. And so I know how good it is for anxiety. Here's all these dogs with anxiety, but they don't feel comfortable. And so I had to stop and say, maybe I don't know best in this moment, and maybe I need to listen, and maybe they can show me a better way. Like, how can I gain their trust? How can I honor their choice and show them that I'm safe? And so that began this process of finding a different way to connect that wasn't touch-based, because there's just so much with touch and hands when you're talking about abused and traumatized animals. And so my practice moved into meditation. And that is more of a kind of an older Japanese practice of Reiki that some lineages teach today, but it's not as widely taught as and known as hands-on healing. And so, it just worked with the animals. As soon as I took the hands away, went inward with my meditation, I got a completely different response. And I found that if I allowed animals to choose to come forward instead of me always going over, to do Reiki to them, that they gained trust very, very quickly. And so that the way that it's evolved now, the way I describe, human Reiki is like hands-on healing for people. And animal Reiki is like holding space for an animal and allowing them to lead their own healing process. So that I'm learning through meditations, different meditations and techniques. I learn how to hold space. What does it mean to hold space? What does my state of mind have to be? What should my emotions be like? What should I be thinking about? How do I calm my energy? Why do I need to calm my energy? All these kind of things.
So you may have already answered this, but and you're going to be sharing an animal Reiki meditation at the close of our session today. But can you just kind of explain, you mentioned the underlying meditation and healing techniques. Can you just explain that a little bit? I mean, basically, what are the core concepts and why does it work?
So, Reiki was created by a Japanese man named Mikao Usui, who spent his whole life searching for the answer to why he was here. And he only found it when he was in his 60s, after having tried many other different things in his life and not having any success, excuse me, in finding the answers. And so he went up to the top of Mount Kurama in Japan, excuse me, and he did a 21-day fast at the top of this mountain. Now, I've been to this mountain in Japan, and it's extremely wild. The trees are so tall. The wind is so fierce. I was only up there a few hours. I can't imagine being up there 21 days and fasting. And he basically said to himself, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to find the answer, or I'm going to die trying. He was out of options at that point. And on the 21st day, he had an enlightenment experience, as he described it, where he saw this light come and to his third eye and basically hit him in his eye. And when that happened, he saw with clarity the truth of his life, and that was that we are all one and we are all connected. And the reason that he was here was to help others remember that sacred connection. And so he walked down the mountain and he began teaching and helping people that were sick through this hands-on healing method, and then teaching these meditation techniques. And so the techniques that he taught, they're very Japanese based. Many of them are closely linked to Buddhist concepts, but they're not religious. So one of the special things about Reiki is that there's no religious affiliation. So you can basically be any religion. And the kind of things that you learn are the Reiki precepts. This is how to live a more balanced life. For today only, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, practice diligently or work diligently, and be kind to others. So we have that as kind of our core. And then you learn certain breathing techniques to help you quiet your mind and develop your hara, which in Japanese means belly. And it's considered in Japanese spiritual practice the center of your energy, the center of your balance in your body, mind, and spirit. And so we in Western society, we don't ever think about our belly. We're always up here, right? So it's really about bringing our energy to our center, and that really can shift things. And then there's a variety of techniques that you learn, like the hands-on healing for yourself and for others that I was talking about. You also learn certain symbols and mantras, and some of these are related to Buddhist, like older Buddhist practices. And they're basically to meditate on, either on a symbol or on a mantra, to chant mantra, or to just speak it, to help you to, again, quiet your mind, become more centered. A lot of the practices that we learn that are Japanese based are about mindfulness. And mindfulness is a very strong teaching in Japanese culture, because they believe in Japan, if you're not focused and you don't concentrate and you're not diligent, then you'll never really live to your full potential. And so that's like a very strong cultural value. And so we see that also very strongly in the teachings of Reiki. And so that's what makes Reiki really unique, is the Japanese cultural element to it, which comes from Mikao Usui, and the teachings that he chose to include, which we can see kind of he drew from other, again, remember I said he was in his 60s when he put this all together. So we can kind of see how in his mind, once he had that experience of oneness, then he was a great teacher, and he saw some people need physical touch, some people are visual and they need to see something, a beautiful calligraphy to focus on. Other people need chanting, they need to hear, so you can see all the elements. Those of you who are teachers, right, we all learn in different ways. So all of those types of learning are possible when you learn the system of Reiki.
So you created the concept of let animals lead. And I think you've talked about this a little bit, but can you just kind of explain to us how that started and what its value is and why it's so important?
So the Let Animals Lead method, I have been developing it since I learned Reiki 23 years ago. But it's really about finding a way to give animals freedom, choice in the Reiki session. And also it's about shifting our perception to see animals as teachers. And so a lot of times if you think of, oh yeah, I'm a Reiki practitioner, you think of, I'm the healer and I'm going to go help, with animals, they bring so much to the connection. And so I realized if I just see myself as the healer going in to help them, then I'm missing 50% of what's happening, or more, actually. A lot of times animals, even if it's like the most sick, weak shelter animal, they have more to teach me about life and spirit and what it means to heal than a healthy animal a lot of times. So to see the animals, shifting our perception to see animals as teachers is really central. And also something that's really important, I've talked a little bit about mindfulness, so just really learning to be present with an open heart with animals, but also to think about, and this is a really important question that I ask all my students in level 1. You have to ask yourself, if you want to do this healing modality, stop and ask yourself, what does it mean to heal? What does that mean to you? Because the answer that you give to that question is going to affect what you're doing with the animal and why you're doing it. And I think in our culture, healing means curing or fixing a problem. Actually, it means taking a pill and suppressing the symptom and not worrying about what the underlying cause was. Like, let's face it, we take an Advil and we're like, I'm healed, right? So it's really, healing has gotten, in my opinion, in our culture in modern times, the word healing has gotten watered down and is very surface. And so we need to go back to the origins of what it means to heal. And if you look at the word heal, it means to become whole. And so a big piece of what we're doing in the Let Animals Lead method is we are learning to see the wholeness in difficult situations. So that means if I am looking at an animal at a shelter who, let's say they have mange, and so they've lost all their hair and they're all swollen and uncomfortable, and maybe you could see their ribs because they've been neglected where they came from, and they look uncomfortable, and it's just right, your heart goes out. It's just really hard to see. So if I'm looking at that dog, what my human eyes might say is, oh, that poor dog, look how sick he is. He doesn't feel good. He's skinny. This is so awful, right? But if I look with my Reiki eyes, I want to look deeper than that. And I want to see their light, their Reiki, their spiritual energy, their spiritual essence. I want to look deeper and see that beautiful essence. Because it's really important for us to be able to see that animals are not defined by what's happened to them, by the trauma that they've experienced, by the terrible things somebody did to them. That does not define who they are. Nothing can dim the beautiful light that is that animal's essence. And so a big piece of Let Animals Lead is being a mirror and reflecting back that perfection to the animal in their weakest, most difficult moment of suffering. And that is such a huge piece of helping them get well.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is the animals are going to heal themselves, and we're going to hold a space for them to do that more easily. I don't see myself as healing them.
I think that I volunteer at the Tamerlane Sanctuary on weekends, and I share Reiki with the animals there. And I feel like I'm making a connection with their soul, which I think is what you were just saying. I think we view it the same way. I really feel like I am making a very deep connection when I spend time with an animal with their soul.
Absolutely.
So tell us about Sarah, and how did that come about, and what do you do there, and what are your activities? And just tell us all about Sarah.
So Sarah is my passion project. So my company where I do all my teaching and I have my students and I'm always, writing manuals and books and everything. That's Animal Reiki Source. That's kind of my company. But my passion project is helping rescued animals. So back in 2008, my co-founder, Leah D'Ambrosio, and I co-founded Sarah to create an organization of dedicated volunteers who share the passion to help rescued animals. So that would mean animals in shelters, also animals in sanctuaries and other types of rescue organizations, to help them. My vision was to really make shelters a peaceful place and to have sort of my army of kindness ambassadors, because that's kind of what I see. If you're a Reiki practitioner, you're an ambassador of kindness and compassion. And so to see those ambassadors go out into all these organizations, and it was my dream that every shelter and sanctuary would offer Reiki to their animals. Because, you can have a shelter that does everything right, and they have good food, and they have warm rooms for the animals, and they're giving them food, and they might even have trainers come in and help train them, and they have people come and play with them. But the animal can still feel alone and can still feel lost. And this is the piece that Sarah can bring. There, like you said, that soul to soul connection. It's reminding us of our essence, and our essence is we are all connected and we're not alone. And that feeling for an animal who's been abandoned or isn't with their family, to touch their spirit and their soul and remind them that you're not alone, and I'm here. I'm listening, and I'm here for you, and I'm not focusing on what's wrong with you. I'm here seeing how beautiful you are, and I'm so grateful to be with you in this moment. That is the missing piece. And so we have now over 200 members in shelters and sanctuaries all around the world, and we're all volunteers, and we go in and we hold space for animals with this kind of philosophy in our minds, shining the light back to these dear ones. And we also teach staff who are interested how to do this, which is important too.
So it seems to me that the volunteers and the employees at shelters in particular, and also at sanctuaries, are just overwhelmed. And so I would think that they would welcome someone who is willing to do what you just described. Has that been your experience? Are they very welcoming for this concept, or do you kind of have to educate them? How would one approach a shelter?
It depends. If they have experience and they know what Reiki is and they have a positive association with Reiki, because most people practice it differently than we do, right? Mm-hmm. It's touch. So a lot of times we'll be like, no, you can't touch our animals, right? So it's like, well, that's not what we do. So there's some education that's involved. But it's really, I think the best way, what we encourage our Sarah members to do, is to approach your local community shelter or sanctuary, wherever it is that you feel drawn to make a difference, and become a regular volunteer and just start helping. And get to know the other volunteers and help them with, they have a weekend adoption festival, or they're doing, building a new barn, or they're doing, and so they need their volunteers, and just pitch in and be a part of the team. And then it's much easier once they know you, they understand that you are there to help them. They've seen, hopefully that wherever you are, peace follows you, compassion and open-heartedness follows you. Then that conversation of, hey, I do something called animal Reiki. Can I, share with this animal who's really sick? And then that conversation is much easier, because I think it's really hard if somebody doesn't know what animal Reiki is and they're already completely overwhelmed and burned out. And, and then you go in there, then it's like you're creating more work for them rather than making life easier for them, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. You know, if the animals who are anxious calm down, they're more easily adopted, right? So we're trying to make life easier. So that's really, I mean, I've had experiences both ways where sometimes the director knows what Reiki is and they know who I am and they want me to come in and volunteer, and I don't have to talk to anyone or do any educating. I could just go in there. But I've had the other experience too, where I just have to walk dogs. And then after a while, I can ask, hey, can I do Reiki after I walk the dogs? And then I can have that conversation. So it really depends. But I think seeing, you know, let animals lead practitioners, we are ultimately animal advocates. And our work is a work of the spirit. But if we can see ourselves as part of a wider team of animal advocacy and see where our place is in it, but not see ourselves separate from it, I think that's the best way.
So can you share some of your personal experiences or the personal experiences of Leah or your members? Because I've heard some of these personal experiences in our monthly meetings, and they're very inspiring. And can you share just a couple of those with our participants?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, you know, depending on the animal and the place and the time, you know, I've had so many experiences, but there are some that really stand out to me. And so it's kind of an unusual experience, but I'd like to share the experience I had with Makoto, he's passed away now, but he was a black leopard that lived at the Care Foundation in Florida, which is an exotic animal rescue. And they have like over 200 animals, and they have all kinds of like alligators and crocodiles and monkeys and bears and tigers and like everything. So Makoto was brought there severely abused, starved, and hating humans, basically wanting to kill any person that tried to come feed him. He was very unhappy. And actually they wanted to euthanize him because no one would take him because he was so mean. But Kristen, the founder of Care Foundation, is amazing, and she won't shy away from a difficult project. So she's like, bring him here, he'll be fine. So they brought him. So he had arrived there not too long before the very first time I went to the Care Foundation to teach a class. And so I knew nothing about this cat. I did not hear his story. And the first time I walked on the property, she took us around to see all the animals. And so I walked around to see, you know, the different animals, and I saw Makoto and immediately just felt heart to heart with him, just immediately. And so I started talking to him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. And I just felt it was like Reiki started happening. That soul to soul connection was there as soon as I laid eyes on him. Of course, we're across, you know, through the bars. And do you know what he did? He rolled over on his back and was purring with his feet up in the air. And Kristen started bawling because she couldn't believe. She's like, I don't even know what's happening right now because he hates people and he doesn't do this. And I was there for like 4 or 5 days. I spent every day with him and meditating with him and just seeing him as this beautiful, shining light, seeing him as this teacher to me, and not knowing anything about his background. So, you know, I found out later about that. And it was like amazing to me that we had this connection. And I wondered about that connection. After we spent that time together, he started to get better with people. He started to be gentler. People could come in and feed him. He wasn't trying to kill them. And then he got to the point where they would throw in his meat and he would come over and want to be scratched before he would eat.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
And at the same time, so this is the part where I could say, oh, maybe I helped him a little bit, right? Remember I said that's only half what's happening, right?
Mhm.
Oh, and I see your little darling, your little birdie, your pigeon.
Yes, he wants to say hi.
He likes this story.
Yeah, he always likes to be the center of attention. And so
Oh, he's so
Thunder,
sweet.
this is Thunder the Wonder Pigeon. Um, he can only see out of one eye and he can't fly, so he lives with us and Forbes, our rescue dog. So say hi, Thunder, and then I'm going to put you back on the floor. Say
I
hello.
think he just
Okay.
wants to remind us that he's going to be helping teach us tonight. He's like,
Yes.
I'm a
Okay.
teacher too. So this is where this other piece of the Reiki equation came in for me, and the let animals lead equation, I could say, because a lot of people don't think of how animals teach us. So shortly after I went home after that class and that amazing connection with this black leopard, and just feeling like, wow, I can't believe that that even happened. Just so grateful. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And being like an introvert, a shy person my whole life, very gentle, non-combative, like just very quiet in my life. Okay. Now I have this horrible diagnosis and I have to fight it because I want to live. So I'm sitting in my meditation. I'm doing Reiki for myself every day, of course. And I'm like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I can't win against cancer. I mean, everyone I know who's had it, I know so many people who died of it. I'm like, that's it. I can't do this. I'm a gentle, meek person. It's going to steamroll over me. And that's it. Sitting in my meditation, I see Makoto's eyes, his yellow eyes, his face in my meditation. And he snarls. I see that. And he never showed me that in real life. And I'm seeing that in my meditation. And I'm like, I felt his ferocity. And I'm like, if I could be like Makoto, I think I can beat this. Like his fierceness came through to me. I felt it physically in my body, and it awakened that part of me that was strong enough to fight.
Wow.
And so he came to me every day as I was going through my surgeries and my treatments and feeling really weak and not knowing what was going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. And then as I'm getting stronger and I'm like, I'm going to beat this, and I'm well now, I'm off all my meds, I'm cancer free. So I'm very grateful. He was with me he just appeared every time. And so it's like, wow, like if I hadn't met him, like, would I have remembered that I'm strong enough?
Yeah.
Like, it's a question I ask myself. So I think there's so much to this soul to soul connection, as you talk about, that, like, why do animals come into our lives? Like, they are here. It's not just us doing something fantastic and helping them. It's them blessing us with their presence and giving us a gift if we are willing to hear that gift or to receive it, if we can be open to receive it. And so when I talk about, in Let Animals Lead, that's a huge piece of what we're doing, is recognizing these kind of blessings and gifts, and how animals awaken us to our strengths, and they awaken us to parts of ourselves that we forgot. They bring that to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're actually receiving some questions, so maybe we should give the participants an opportunity. While I'm finding the question, Sarah, I did want to put Kathleen's books into the chat. And also,
I will add those in. And
okay.
I've also just opened the chat room. So that's available now if anyone would like to chat a question in.
And while we're putting your books into the chat, can you just briefly, for those who are interested in learning more, I mean, obviously, I would recommend that they read your books and that they go to your website. Just what is the best way for two questions. What is the best way for someone to learn from you and apply this? And the second question is, can anyone do this, or do you have to have a particular mindset or particular thing going on in your head to be able to do this? So So I'm going to start looking at the questions, but can you just tell us elaborate on that a little bit?
So I think, getting a
Hello,
getting a
Thunder.
getting a book is a great place to start. And I love to write. I'm a prolific writer, so I have, like, I don't know, a lot of books. So you have a lot of choices, one on horses, one on dogs, a lot of them general ones. My newest book is an animal Reiki meditation journal, where it gives you a meditation to do with your animals and then has you write about sort of what happened, like helps guide you through what's happening. There's a lot of books. That's a great place where you can kind of dip your toe in, and it's not a lot of commitment. You can kind of see, what is the philosophy? Does this resonate? Do I like meditating with my animals? That kind of thing. I would say, probably 5 years ago, I would have told you, well, you have to love animals to do this method. But I actually had a woman take one of my classes at an animal sanctuary about 5 years ago. And she introduced herself by saying she didn't like animals, and her daughter-in-law forced her to take this class. I'm like,
oh, wow.
well, this is going to be interesting. But what happened was one of the cats there had just lost his person, and so was living at the sanctuary now and hadn't been socializing with the other cats and wasn't eating well and was just kind of depressed. And this cat came and sat with her in every meditation, wouldn't leave her side. And she'd never bonded with an animal before. And this cat melted her heart. I knew on the second day when she was still sitting with this cat in meditation, and I saw tears streaming down her face. I'm like, yes, she loves animals now.
That's cool.
So
That's
by
cool.
the end, she's like, I've wasted my whole life like not knowing about animals. I like, she was just like speechless from the animals. So animals can change hearts and can change minds.
Yeah.
And those of you who are vegan or newly vegan, you've heard those stories of how animals have changed people's hearts and minds about their diet. So you know that this is a thing. And so I think really you just have to be open and be willing to be curious. That's really it.
Cool. So I've got a couple of questions here. I'll read them. The first one is there an attunement necessary for animal Reiki like for human Reiki? And if so, is it the same or different symbols?
Okay. So the attunement is one of the teachings that Usui gave. I call it a reiju. That's the Japanese word. It means spiritual blessing. And there's a lot of different teachings about what it is and what it does. Some people believe that you have to get the attunement to turn Reiki on. I don't believe that personally. So for me, you can read my book, do the meditations, not have an attunement, and have a great experience with animal Reiki. The practice is the most important part. But if you want to be a certified practitioner, to me, these reiju are part of the teachings. And I really see them as connecting us to our family tree of Reiki. So my teacher gave reiju to me, and it's basically, it's a sacred ritual between teacher and student that represents standing in the light of oneness together. And it's a way that the teacher supports their student to go deeper in their own spiritual journey. It's, to me.
And that is the lineage that
it is an energetic lineage.
Yes,
It goes
yes.
from a Usui to his students, and to,
Right.
my teacher, and then to me. And so to be an official practitioner, then yes, you need to receive those reiju and be part of the family tree. But I've only learned human Reiki because my animal Reiki teachers were animals. So the reiju that you received from me is the human ones.
Yeah. So the second question is very interesting. Can this type of Reiki be used for free living wild animals also? And what about trees and plants?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
And
tell us more.
In fact, so if you what you'll find is animals are drawn to the shift in your energy that is created through these meditations. And so if you sit in your yard and you do the meditation, you may hear suddenly a frog croaking next to you, a bird landed in a tree, a squirrel crawled up the trunk of the tree and is closing his eyes and relaxing. A butterfly comes and lands on you. I mean, you will see the drawing in of the wild ones. And it's so beautiful because they feel peace, loving kindness, compassion, and the light of the universe just radiating with love. And animals are so sensitive, they really feel that. And, as far as trees are Reiki, spiritual energy. Trees are no different than us. We're all one. And so I like to approach trees the way I do animals, where I see them as my teacher. And what can I learn? What can I learn from this being? I think trees are amazing spiritual teachers about, being present and about, holding space and not rushing through our lives. And trees are the lungs of the planet, right? They give us the oxygen that gives us life. But how do they do that? Just by being. And that's sort of our purpose with our animal Reiki is, I just want to shine. I just want to be the light. And that is what helps others. Not that I'm like doing something to them, but it's
Right.
Trees teach us that the power is in being, not doing. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything, you can do Reiki with everything.
And Sarah, can you help me out here? Are there more questions that you're going to send to me, or?
That is all that I have so far.
Okay. Well, that works out pretty well because we're just about ready for the closing animal Reiki meditation. And Kathleen has said she's willing to we always have a closing meditation, and Kathleen is willing to share this with us. And I'm particularly excited about it. And so we invite all of you and your companion animals and your animal friends, if they want to participate, to take part in this. And so, Kathleen, I'm going to turn this over to you and ask you to share your animal Reiki meditation with us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm excited to connect with all of you guys. So the meditation that I want to practice with you guys tonight and share with you is, I call it the healing space meditation. I talked a little bit about holding space for animals tonight. So I want to show you this particular breath. It's specifically a Reiki teaching. It involves the hara, the belly, which I talked about before, which is our center. And I'm going to help us all to set our intention in a really open and gentle way so that we make animals feel safe and comfortable, and that it is up to them. They are leading this connection. We're not doing something to them and inadvertently chasing them away by pushing our expectations all over them. So that's what my plan is, to guide you through all of that. And so I hope you guys enjoy it. And about 10 minutes or a little bit less. Does that sound good? Okay, perfect. So I always like to start by setting my intention. So this is called gasho. It's palms together. It's a Japanese, technique to show gratitude and reverence. And I think it's a great way to begin when I'm going to start a meditation. So if that feels comfortable for you, you can go into gasho. If not, you can just rest your hands on your lap. That's also fine. But let's close our eyes for a minute. We're going to set our intention to dedicate all the energy of this practice to our animals. We can also extend that to any loved ones that are coming to our mind, human or animal. And if they're with you in the room, that's awesome. You can invite them in. And if they are not physically here with you, that's fine. Just bring them to your mind and heart. They'll also be with us in spirit. So we just invite them to share the space that we're going to create tonight. It's completely up to them. We're going to rest our hands on our laps, palms up or palms down. And I want you to just allow your mind, bring your mind to your breath, and just breathe naturally for a moment and let the mind follow the inhale and the exhale. Feeling the air as it touches your nose, as it fills the lungs. Just follow that breath for a moment. And then I want you to bring your mind to your lower belly. I want you to imagine there's this beautiful sphere of light in the center of your physical being, just 2 or 3 finger widths below the belly button, right in the center of your body. Just imagine that light there. This is the hara. This is your connection to the earth, to grounding, the center of balance in your physical, emotional, and spiritual body. Just see that there. And now we're going to breathe, and we're going to allow our minds to follow the breath. I want you to visualize this time. Visualize your breath as a pure and clear light. And as you inhale, it comes in through the crown and fills your body as it moves down to the hara, the lower belly. And then as you exhale, imagine this light can expand like a beautiful gentle mist out of every pore in your skin and into your aura and out into the universe. So breathing in this pure and clear light through the crown, filling the body, moves all the way down to the lower belly. And then breathing out, expanding this light out of every pore in your skin and out into the universe. And breathing in and breathing out at your own pace. Just let go of everything except the movement of that light. Allow your focus to go inward. Breathing in the light to the belly. Breathing out, expanding this light. Breathing in, connecting. Breathing out, expanding. And with each breath in, you're feeling your connection to the hara is getting stronger. You're feeling more grounded and centered. You might feel yourself a little heavier on the earth. Just feeling really stable. And with each breath out, you're feeling that light expanding further and further into the universe. And then relax your breath for a moment and feel yourself sitting in this beautiful bubble of light. Light filling your whole body, expanding all around you. And imagine that this light can kind of soften your physical edges a little bit. You are the light. You're no different than the light of the universe. So just imagine that you can shine. And this beautiful light is filled with harmony, perfect balance and peacefulness, loving kindness and compassion. This is the true essence of your being. You've uncovered it. You're remembering this is your true self. And we can just hold this beautiful light as an invitation to the animals in our lives, the animals sitting with us, and the animals who touch our hearts and our minds. Just invite them to step into this beautiful space of peacefulness and compassion. So bringing our hands back into Gassho, palms together. And just take a moment to thank your animals for connecting with you in this space. And however they chose to connect in this moment is perfect. And setting your intention to finish the meditation, take a nice deep breath and slowly come back and open your eyes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Welcome.
So I guess it's time to close. I could have gone on with that meditation much longer, but thank you. And now I'm going to ask Victoria to close for us. Can you do that, Victoria?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Kathleen, that was just exquisite. Thank you so, so very much. So Reverend Sarah is going to put our donate button in the chat. We can make these wonderful programs available to you through your donations, which we appreciate very much. And I'm going to close with a prayer that is attributed to Dr. Albert Schweitzer. So we know him as a noted theologian, physician, musician, humanitarian of the mid-20th century, but he's also known to have been someone who deeply cared about animals, someone who was a vegetarian. And interestingly enough, he wrote a letter, handwritten, to the late Jay Dinshaw, founder of the American Vegan Society, explaining to Jay that even in the circumstances in which he lived in some very, very remote parts of Africa, he was vegan to the extent that he was able. And that letter actually is at the new American Vegan Center in the historical district of Philadelphia. So if you've got a trip to Philly planned, there's something to see. And here is Dr. Schweitzer's prayer for the animals. Hear our humble prayer, O God, for our friends, the animals, especially for animals who are suffering, for any that are hunted or lost or deserted or frightened or hungry, for all that will be put to death. We entreat for them all thy mercy and pity. And for those who deal with them, we ask a heart of compassion and gentle hands and kindly words. Make us ourselves to be true friends to animals, and so to share the blessings of the merciful. Amen, Amen. And so mote it be.
So that brings our service to a close. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Kathleen, thank you so much. That was just wonderful. So I guess that it is now time to say goodbye. We hope you will join us again. First time being October 24th. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.